I think we should talk about how we got here to this point of where we're talking about men's work and why it's
Yeah.
fucking important.
Yeah. Why
Let's
this is
talk.
what we're doing.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk a little bit about our journey to get here.
Ah! Oh! Oh!
Because our attempts at doing other things and why they didn't work, and I think that would be really effective.
Well, our higher selves tapped into source, knew we had a calling, and that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are.
Here we are.
Well, I discovered men's work as a general term anyway, probably around 2010, 2011, but it was more personal development.
Okay.
And it was at least a start to something. Sorry.
I'm just trying to get comfortable on this couch. Excuse me, camera. I'm just like working it out. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay.
So the personal development part of it was a huge boost, and it showed me that there was a lot more available to living your life than what I was living. But
What was the first thing that brought you to personal development at all? Personal development as a term it's huge, but what was
Yeah.
the first
I was
book or
mostly self-employed, and I remember I spent a lot of time. I was an illustrator and a designer for most of my adult life. Up till now.
most of your life?
Yeah. And I spent a lot of time around other artists, and then I hung around entrepreneurs around the late 2010, and I realized, oh my God, I love being around business people far more than I do other artists. And then I saw people that produced things, like not just talked about what they wanted to do or had all these philosophical things that constantly had to be, addressed before they could make any decisions. I had my own experience with that. It's not universal, but anyway, that really inspired me. And then I got around people that were, well, very wealthy, and they were giving their time away for free to help anyone who wanted to grow.
Mentorship.
Yeah, to be coaches and mentors to people like me.
Yeah, but they were mentoring people to help them get along. Yeah, okay.
So personal development meant to me that I had a goal and that I was currently insufficient to meet the needs of that goal. So I needed to do the things that I wasn't doing to get to where I wanted to be.
Okay.
And that was a big wake-up call in a really great way. I remember when my mentor, Mr. Fagan, asked me a handful of simple questions in the first luncheon. Simple questions.
Simple questions like, who are you?
What he asked me, well, what do you think income is?
Oh, what do you think income is?
Yeah, and I told him, and I said, here's my wrong answer. And he goes, income is the money you receive in direct proportion to the value you deliver to the marketplace. And it's like I felt my whole body light up. It's like if you gave some, unhealthy person a gigantic salad full of nutrition, or like your whole body just lit up, and that's what happened. That's what it felt like. I knew there was more.
Okay. So you started to go to Jeff Fagan.
Yeah.
What did he had a weekly thing?
Yeah, it was called Tuesday Morning with Jeff Fagan.
Well, that's very creative.
Yeah. And
just in case you weren't sure where you were, that's where you were.
And he was COO of the Peak Potentials with T. Harbecker. And
okay.
Anyway, the guy he could probably retire on Bora Bora.
Right.
But he would rent out a place, not charge anyone anything, and then teach them from the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind book.
Yes.
Every Tuesday.
Nice.
And
so you started doing that weekly?
Yeah.
You brought your kids, didn't you?
Sometimes.
I remember one of them recently saying something that they remembered from that. And it was like, you can't plant seeds too early. And that's amazing that he welcomed kids to that, because kids are sponges. And a lot of us as adults we didn't have these opportunities.
So then ultimately what I realized was that all that I was learning in entrepreneurial success needed for me to have me as a man get my shit together. And that was the challenging part.
What does it mean to be a man?
Well, I'm still learning that.
What did you think it was then?
I had no concept back then. I just thought it was the guy who tried anyway to support and take care of his family, win more arguments with their spouse than he lost, and then hopefully create a ceiling that the whole family could then, glean growth and support from, be the strength of the family. But I certainly didn't feel that way.
Well, I'm glad that your goal is to win more arguments with your
Not with
spouse
you.
than losing. That's really fun.
That's my old life.
Well, it's funny because of the perception of being in a partnership is that there's always an argument to win.
No.
So
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like, when you don't have the experience of what is a man, what does it mean to be a man? What is masculine energy? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Like, how do you find it?
Well, I was also surrounded by the growth of the culture at the time that was still trying to figure that out. And because of the abuses of men for centuries, the pushback state of things was in full swing around 2010. And so things like toxic masculinity and consent and a lot of things they have a valid root were all very loud.
It was extreme.
And I didn't grow up in a male empowered environment. So for me, what a man was just a gigantic, foggy, moving target, just like everything else in my life was.
Mm-hmm.
That's where men's work finally came in for me.
Yeah.
Was to deal with the kind of person that I needed to be.
So where did your dad go? When you were a kid?
No, he
he wasn't around. I know.
No,
we know that. So I think there's a common thread. I'm just going to throw it out there now because I think it's real. A lot of men who are looking for men's work now, or at the point of watching something like this or listening to it, they didn't have a solid father figure.
No.
Like what percentage, or like what do you does he feel like that's accurate, that they're missing that good example of what a man is?
Well, I know this is like the cliche, but I'm Gen X. I was born in 1970, and we were like the generation defined by fathers abandoning us. Like that was sort of like the era. And
So
a lot of men in my men's circle either didn't have a dad. They had, well, everybody's different. There's no one size fits all. I know a lot of people, but it's very rare, who had really great relationships with their dad, but that seems to be the exception to the rule.
Well, and I'm saying, like, you're speaking from your experience, and I know that when people hear this, they're like, my dad was there, my dad was fine. So if that's the case for someone listening, saying like, I had a dad, it's like, so are you, if you're the person that had a dad, you're probably not looking for the understanding of what I'm just gonna sit in your lap right now.
It's good.
You're not looking for that as much, that understanding of what a man is, if you had that example. So, I think that if your beliefs, if your story is we're the generation that gets abandoned by their dads, then you'll find that in men's work, because that's really common in men's work, that the dad figure wasn't there.
I mean, it's statistically common for Gen X, but the greater point isn't that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody I know needs to know better of what it means to be a man, because it's all at the root of what they believe about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Every man that I know is only meant to be the man that they are, not the one society said this is what a man should be.
Yeah. And
oftentimes those things line up in many ways, but ultimately,
I think there's a core set of foundational things that make a man, the masculine. And it looks different for everybody, and we're all very unique. So the way that you embody and embrace and live in your masculine is different from other people.
Yeah, very much.
So what's something that makes you feel like you're doing that you are that?
When I make confident decisions, when I feel healthy and strong and balanced and centered, primarily because I know what my purpose right now is. I have a goal and a purpose. You want to see a man shrivel and become neutral and almost completely freaking useless?
Not really.
Take their purpose away.
Yeah.
It's not a stereotype. Men, there's a book out, I remember years ago, called Love and Respect, and it just described in simple terms, almost daringly, men want respect and women want love, and I'd say even need. Like if if a man is in charge of his department and someone were to ask him, "Do your men respect you?" He'd be like, "They'd better." But if you ask him, "Do your people love you?" He's like, "I don't care if they love me."
Yeah, I remember my dad saying that. "I don't care if you like me, but I need respect."
Yeah.
And he would say that people, not necessarily his family, but just people, like, it doesn't matter if people like you as long as they respect you, and I think that's a very masculine point of
It is.
view. And from a woman's point of view, it's not that I need you to like me, it's that I need that connection and I need that safety. So I think for
Mhm.
women, like, it's more that I need to feel safe to be who I am
Yeah.
and to be able to let my guard down and relax into feminine energy.
Yeah.
And for us, and this is a conversation that we've been having since we met, understanding what that means. What is the masculine? What is the feminine? Is this related to our genders and our human body and like our sexuality? Like, not necessarily. The masculine and feminine energy aren't necessarily defined by that, but they're embodied and illustrated in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that stuff was so well, what I understand and what we practice
Mhm.
was so far from anything I had a concept of.
Mhm.
Because
Well, it's not really talked about as an understanding, but I really love and embrace the yin yang, the feng shui, the balance of heart and harmony of elements and energy and cooperation. And the feminine design is cooperation much more than the masculine design of competition. So both of those things have to work together.
Mhm.
And I think for us and what we've learned being together and what we've been doing is
Well,
really understanding that harmony.
and it's when I really took men's work seriously that made any of this possible.
Mhm.
I remember 2019 was a big year, like the deepest programs I had that were really just fucking up my life.
Mhm.
I had to own that I was the one doing it. Even though I may not have started those programs as a kid, I had to take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
And man, of the repeat in my head. I mean, it's just the dumbest thing you'd ever hear me say because I don't talk with a bunch of just low vibration slang and vernacular. But I remember in January of 2019 and being in my apartment, just knowing I had to get it out of my system completely and face it.
Mm.
But the words were, "Chicks don't dig me."
Mhm.
Like, that is not how I speak in any area of my life, then or now.
Yeah.
But that was the imprint. And that wasn't my voice. Those weren't my words, but it affected me.
Mhm.
It's just funny. But I think it's like what I was saying earlier. I was thinking about when I was like, you asked about what's the difference between personal development and what it meant to me at the
What does
time.
it mean? Yeah.
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 For me, like I said, I was trying to grow as a businessman and a young entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But then I realized everything about me as a human, my experiences, my beliefs, all my patterns,
Mhm.
they were in the way of
Mhm.
everything that I wanted.
Mhm.
Or they were obstacles anyway, or unresolved stories. They were like just like a big box of useless stuff that
Mhm.
was doing an old job. Anyway, I had to deal with all that. And when I finally was invited by my friend to see real men's work,
Yeah.
that's where the light went on. And it took
Wait, what year
years.
what year was how old were you when that happened? Ish.
So it was the year of my divorce, 2015.
Okay.
And my nervous system and my self-esteem and everything was just a wreck.
Mhm.
But I knew I had to do something about it because I have 2 daughters at the time,
Yeah.
and they needed their dad,
Yeah.
and they will always need their dad,
Yeah.
and they don't have I can't ask them to put their childhood on hold while I, just
So
putz
you
around.
so you were, like, in your early 40s.
Yeah, I was 44.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you talk about men's work in these men's groups, what's the age range of men that show up?
Oh, like 18 to 80?
Okay. So there's no right or wrong
No.
time to start this, but
Better
w
late than never, but yeah.
yeah,
It's
I
always
think starting young is really powerful because men go through these stages and seasons of development. And if you can get this foundation, especially like for the men that just didn't have that father figure, that presence or that example, if you can connect to that while you're still young.
Yeah, there's a young man in my circle right now. He's not even 22,
Mhm.
and he's learning how to look at, address, and connect to his feelings,
Yeah.
to ask for what he wants,
Yeah.
to face. I mean, seriously, you can be 20 years old and have lots of shadows and stuff that need to be resolved. And this young man is stepping up and getting a box of tools,
Hmm.
and we're all so proud to be able to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Well, he's getting that support. So he's showing up and he's asking for it, and
yeah, that's the big thing. You got to ask for it. You
he's
can't make
asking
someone
for
do
it,
this.
and he's willing to be vulnerable and participate. And I think it's like walking into a group of brothers, uncles, grandparents.
That's what it was.
Like it's family, and it's really powerful. I mean, just from what I've seen, what you've talked about, there's that family feeling to it.
Yeah, and so this is something I want to say to the listeners is men's work isn't like a universal like handout and everyone follows the same script.
Right.
They're all over the world. They're for all different types of seasons and contexts, like there's AA,
Oh, yeah.
there's recovery groups, there's like all sorts of different contexts for this. The goal is, if you're looking for help, find the group that matches where you're at in your life and can help you at that stage. Everything's a journey. And sometimes you have a short journey. I did a short journey in a recovery group, even though I didn't I wasn't addicted to anything. I wasn't struggling with an abuse or anything. It was just the mindset that I'm going to take complete ownership of my life. And that was like, a short part of my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, you got to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just seeing that vulnerability and transparency with what start out as strangers and becomes like there's a process for it. There's a container. So the word container is obviously something that is created in the circle you participate in,
Yeah,
which is funny because we talk about masculine and feminine energy, and men create the container.
Yes.
Masculine creates the container, and masculine in this space, the men's work, you create the container for each other.
Yeah, of safety, of respect, and accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started to see what it's like for men to feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
to call each other out,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to just even hold space for
Mm-hmm.
someone to just say their piece.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that happens a lot with men is, in the mixed signals we get growing up, is we're supposed to face our storm. We're supposed to put on our fucking armor, get on our big old shiny horse, and head straight into the tornado on behalf of our friends and family and the greater purpose and whatever else. But we're supposed to do it alone.
Right.
That's a warrior.
Right.
But no man ever really wants that.
I don't think that humans are designed to do anything alone. We're communal, tribal beings, and even as we're talking about this, and as you're saying this, creating a container is masculine energy.
Yes, it's building. Men are amazing builders,
and it's masculine energy.
Yes.
So, can I create a container as a woman? Yes, but I'm in my masculine energy when I'm doing it.
Gotcha.
So, if someone's listening to like, oh, we can create women create containers. Yes. But even I'm kind of seeing this as, I have a kind of thought that's formulating here. Men's work, there's men that create the container, and then there's men that do work in that container.
Yeah.
So would you say that the men creating the container, holding the space, are holding solid masculine energy?
Definitely.
Would you say that the men participating in it are able to relax into their emotional, feminine, vulnerable side, which is incredibly
So let me
powerful? I'm not calling them women.
No.
But that vulnerability, the emotion, the soft human that needs that inside of us is our feminine. energy. Not, again,
Yes.
this isn't about gender.
No, Carl Jung, anima and animus. All humans have a masculine and a feminine side.
Mm-hmm.
And so to just tighten the screw a little bit on what your question was,
Yeah.
all of the men show up however they are.
Yes.
And just naturally sorts itself out.
Mm-hmm.
We have agreements.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like so many little components to this. Regardless of whatever energy we're in, as a group, we have a set of agreements and protocols that create the safety and the expectation of knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
And if something does come up, then we have at least some agreement to address it. It's not all off the hip and just see what happens.
Right.
It's not like Fight Club or something. But when everybody's contributing, the container builds, because every man's personal truth could be naturally very feminine, naturally very masculine, but both energies create that container.
Right.
And so when the container is built, it is a masculine, container.
It's a structure. So
yes, it's a masculine structure.
It's kind of, and I'm asking you this because I'm seeing it, and the masculine creates the house and the feminine makes it a home and makes it beautiful. So there's always these components working together. So the men who are in that solid structure, masculine energy, holding the space, you can't fuck with them. They're not going to let anything happen in there. They're keeping it
right, and then
strong and safe.
Sometimes some of the very masculine men get to step into that circle and do the deep emotional work. They get to touch with the feminine energy so they can get where their emotions are going.
So it's a role. It's a role. And one night you could be holding the container and the next night you could be in the container.
Yeah.
Because all of us have both of those things. We have both. We have masculine and feminine energy in us. We need to live in both of those spaces throughout our lives. We shift between them.
Yeah.
If we're embodying our wholeness, our whole selves. And I think some of the perception of, gender identity, all of the stuff that's going on, like, can you be a man? Can you be a man and live only in masculine energy all the time?
No.
And I don't think you can.
No, I'm very creative and so are you. You're very powerful and so am I.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we talk a lot about, and this is definitely very high level stuff for a lot of people to hear this. So
but this is why we do this, because I feel like this is the whole point.
We both can't be in the same energy. We have been, and it's not like if we are, something falls off the roof and we have.
No,
it's just that we both then compete for the same space,
right?
And we're not competitive with each other. It's just natural. And so if I'm much more in a feminine energy, I've been like drawing or creating or doing content or writing or whatever. I have to be conscious of the fact that at some point I have to shift out of that. Or if I find myself really neutral and you're really neutral, oh boy, let the love flow. It just
we just don't have the fire goes away. The yin yang thing, the opposition, and dark light, male, female, masculine, and feminine, all those things just sort of fizzle. Like if you don't have that play together, then that whole thing just sort of, becomes really quiet. I think it's just quiet.
And then just all the things I've learned about myself in the last 5 years has just created such a new dimension to that too, because being bisexual creates so much more dynamics around that, because it's like.
Well, and I think, just even talking about bisexual it's balanced in masculine, feminine energy and being able to embody either one.
Yeah, and it's just another
So how you
version.
Express it, because when you say that, even just saying bisexual, like it brings that sexuality, but sexual energy is creative energy, is life force.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with your sex life. This has to do with your beingness.
Yes.
And who you are and how you embody it and how you show up. So
because when I finally owned that about myself, the first thought was, well, that makes me a lot more feminine now.
Yeah.
And then I had to work through that because, I was new to this whole way of thinking. And then the more that we work together, it's like, oh, it's just another, partition of the
It's
same
just
dynamic. It's just
it's a balance, and I think that's the whole thing, and anybody listening to this is, has their own experience, their own way of seeing the
yeah.
world and interacting with different people and different things that you wanna participate with, but if you think about, uh, men's circle, men's work, being able to participate in a masculine or feminine energy, the wholeness of each human being having both. I think you and I both have kind of a balance
Yeah, we're
of
good at that. We're
of
getting better.
I think we each have kind of a balance of masculine and feminine energy. We can embody either one,
Mhm.
and that allows us to flow between that. But if someone's extremely masculine and lives mostly in that energy, there's nothing wrong with that. But it allows for that person to experience, well, maybe I can soften into and balance a little bit. It doesn't make you less of a man. It just
No,
gives you
makes you
something
more of a man,
gives you something to experience.
makes you a whole man. Because the whole goal of this men's work is for a man to feel safe,
Mhm.
to have brotherhood, to know that they're not facing the storm alone anymore,
Right.
and that they should never have had that belief in the first place. And that if they ask for help, I need to be accountable to something that I want to accomplish. People will hold you accountable,
Mhm.
and then vice versa. It becomes, participation,
Yeah.
and the whole energy of I'm willing to look at myself honestly
Mhm.
and call things as they are and acknowledge how I really feel
Mhm.
and what's really true for me and what I want and what I don't want. It's just amazing. It's just like any human being has all these very basic fundamental rights,
Mhm.
but for a lot of reasons, men feel like it's been kind of siloed to a handful of things. Like, here's your cigar butt, your can of paint, and your wrench. Now go be a man.
Yeah, I think the word participation is what just stood out because you can participate in your life and experience what you want to in the way that you want to. And that's what we ask. Who are you? What do you want? And how do you want to get it? And what do you want your life to look like? Because you don't have to fall into that. And again, those are like those gender stereotypes. So we don't have to live in those. What I like to do is completely uniquely me. I like to do things that would be considered very masculine. I'm an assembly technician.
Yeah, you like building stuff.
I like building stuff. I like using tools, and I like puzzles and putting things together and sorting things out.
And I like creating stuff. I like being artistic and
And I
yeah.
like creating stuff and being artistic and painting and drawing and writing and dancing and singing. So it really doesn't have anything to do with your physical body or whatever. It's nothing
No.
to do with all this stuff. This is really like we're all so unique. We're all completely unique in what we're interested in and drawn to and what our souls desire and what we want to experience. So that participation, I think, is the hugest part of this. When you go into men's work, you're with other men who understand that you have a right to experience and participate
Mhm.
as a whole being and who you are.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Because one of the things we say to each other in one of the stages is all of you is welcome here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And that means everything.
Mm-hmm.
It means all of your gold and all your shit, because that's what we're here to help every man get in touch with and be honest about.
I think I want to finish this podcast with a comment on that because when I met you, I'd never heard that before. And you said that to me. And it was kind of early in our relationship. And I was like, okay. And then a little later in our relationship, and I was going through something and I was in a really weird, dark, I don't know, dark place or whatever. And you were not quite sure how to deal with me as a woman
Mm.
going through that. And I think I threw that I didn't throw it at you in a mean way, but I
No.
said, so when you said all of me is welcome, you get this too. And you were like, oh, like it was almost like you say that in the men's circle and there's this pattern, there's this container, but dealing with a woman doing that, it was a big moment for us
Yeah. Well,
where you really
and I meant
acknowledged
it.
that.
I
Yeah.
definitely meant it because
And you were there, but it was almost like it took you a minute to figure out how to do that with me.
what I learned was that there are all sorts of contexts for the things that I say and I believe. That's how I want to be in my life with the people I care about. And then you just gave me a whole new dimension as to what that could mean in our relationship. And it reminded me, like, I meant what I said, but wow, here is another way to test.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes the philosophy and the belief and the intention is greater than the current ability to exercise it. And so you gave me an opportunity to exercise it.
And you did. And I think that was one of the most cool moments in our relationship, because you really sat with that and said, "Oh, wow, this is," yeah. And then you just were there.
Because I've had enough people tell me something that they thought they meant, and then when they were tested, they didn't mean it at all, and it's broken my heart and it's hurt me. Then I'll be fucking damned if I'll do that to you. Because no, I want us to have the very best.
We want everyone to have the very best.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we're sitting here recording this conversation, so other people can hear it and understand it, and maybe it triggers or plants some seeds or sparks a question, and we'd love to hear what your questions are, because we
Yes.
want to know what is most important, what you want to hear about, and we share from our own experience, and we're here to set an example that we feel is, well, not just what we feel, but what we've heard
And what
and
we
the way
practice.
people see as how we are and how we practice our relationship, and how do you guys do it? So we're sharing it.
Find yourself a place where you can be yourself and learn more about what makes you who you are. You'll never regret it. It may not always be easy, but it's actually not that hard either.
Keep going.
Yes.
Take little steps.
Love you.
Love you too. And love you too.
Ah! Oh! Oh!